Okay, hello everyone. My name is Luna. First of all, thank for Digital Overdose for hosting us. And I'm a Brazilian DevOps and also a game developer and also passionate about AI ethics and safety.
Hello guys, I am Alvaro Campus. I am Brazilian DevOps too. I love cars and I am enthusiastic astronomer. Okay, let's go. We live in a world of artificial intelligence. Technology surrounds us on all sides and infiltrates our lives and jobs. AI is not just a concept we read about in sci-fi novels. It's reality. But how safe are we really? It's a question that often goes overlooked in the chaos of life today. But it needs to be asked because if this technology turns against us, there may not be anything we can do about it at all. As AI becomes more and more integrated into our lives, what will we really be giving up? Will we give up our free will, our jobs, our lives, our world? Possibly. And there doesn't seem to be much we can do about it. Humans are becoming commodity in this new machine-driven world. We are easily replaced, and if need be, completely irrelevant. This machine have potential to create far greater economic growth than humans could ever dream of doing. The only true drawback is that they don't care about human life. They are forced to obey their programming, but that's all they have to do. But the most frightening thing is the lack of need of human beings at all. Many say that AI poses the greatest threat to humanity since nuclear war. It's not just option that may come in the distant future. It's an imminent threat. We are just one major burst of data away from losing our jobs, our livelihood, and even our entire world. And there is nothing we can do about it. Despite all this, many researchers in artificial intelligence work to ensure that this future stays only a nightmare, or that less a distant possibility. But our research is doing enough. We need to be on guard of signs of something go wrong before, and it quickly goes very wrong indeed. The truth is we don't understand that happen. Why it's happened, or how to tell if it is going wrong. We have no idea what consequences this technology could have if the wrong people get their hands on it. There are no regulations there. Nobody knows what will happen with this technology has been used completely incorrectly. And worst of all, we are allowing it to rapid adult think the consequences through very carefully first. This is not possible. This is not possibility. This is happening right now. Artificial intelligence has already infiltrated every aspect of our lives, and it's growing more and more powerful every day. In fact, many companies don't think AI technologies are ever ready yet for consumer market. So what will happen when they are? But what the average person to do? Do we have anything to worry about? Is it all just a scary sci-fi movie? Well, maybe. But there are some things we can do. We can do on guard for any signs of something go wrong with AI technology. And we should take action if the signs are there. If you are in a position of power or influence, you need to consider create some sort of policy regulating how this technology is being used. Otherwise, it will be too late by the time anybody realize what's going wrong.
Okay, I understand the speech was a little bit dramatic, and you all might be thinking right now, oh, but AI is not that smart yet. Why should I worry about it? Well, I hate to break it down to you, but this entire speech was written by an AI. The name of the AI is GPT-3, and it was created by OpenAI, and its capabilities are way above writing a text like the one you just heard. To be very clear, the only input we gave to the machine was the title of our presentation, AI, the Inevitable Threat. Keep in mind, the AI is not really forced to tell the truth. It might actually try to deceive us as it has done multiple times in the past. So let's take a deep dive into their words and see what was wrong and what was right. To make things easier for all of us, me and Alvaro have already highlighted each part of the speech accordingly. We realized that the AI was able to write personal opinions, facts, questionable statements, which are partially true, outright lies, and even catchphrases. And these are the colors we decided to use to, well, show them off. Okay, so we will start this with a questionable sentence. We live in a world of artificial intelligence. While AIs are a great part of our life today, they are not yet the main protagonists of our world, but I personally don't think that will take too much longer for that to be true. If you look around us, it's very hard to find something that does not operate without an AI in the background. After that, we have a true statement. Technology does surround us on all sides, and it's not a concept of sci-fi novels anymore. It indeed is reality. It then ends this paragraph with a nice catchphrase, which it will directly address in the next paragraph. And notice quickly here how the AI managed to maintain cohesion between paragraphs by using catchphrases. Like some humans have difficulties in doing this, and the AI managed to do it very well. Okay, moving on. Everything that the AI said here is true. I know it sounds terrifying, especially because it said there is nothing we can do about it. But the sad truth is, if AI decides to go rogue, we will probably have no way of stopping it. This doesn't mean we're doomed. Don't worry. There are ways of dealing with the situation. We just have to act before they actually turn against us and make sure that their interests are aligned with ours. Okay, let's use an example that Robert Miles, an AI safety expert, has designed. Suppose I'm a stamp collector and I want to create an AI that collects stamps for me. In this scenario, I succeeded and made the most advanced AI humanity has ever seen. I gave it a credit card and I said, you have 1 year to collect stamps for me. That's all I said. And I gave it a credit card, of course, right? So thinking on the behalf of the AI here, the first logical thing it could do is use the resources assigned to it. So let's burn the credit card on the internet to buy stamps. That seems pretty logical. And at some point, my card will be declined, right? And then the AI is faced with its first barrier. It doesn't have enough money. But wait, where is money stored? In banks. But aren't there digital versions of it? And right here, we have the probably best hacker in the world. It's literally an artificial intelligence. So how long do you think it's going to take for the AI to decide spamming 9999999 in its bank account to buy stamps like literally all across the internet? This could possibly break our entire economy because it can use that money to buy something else than, like, for example, hardware. It can buy all the hardware in the world and ship it to whatever it is. This will be chaos. But to be very honest, it might take a day or two to happen. Like, do you think the AI is going to take that long to hack a bank? Not really. And what will the AI do for the remainder of 363 days? We are not sure. But look, most of the strategies to end with the maximum possible amount of stamps will end on a guaranteed apocalypse, where the AI will happily trade all Earth's particles if it's able to get that one stamp. One stamp is more valuable than Earth. So yeah, it's a little bit complicated. And to be honest, we might not even have a way to stop it after it's ongoing. So it's really important to act beforehand. Okay, moving on. The droid basically just repeated itself in its paragraph, although there's one thing I would like to focus on, and this is, will we give up our free will? Now, this may seem weird to think about, but have any of you ever watched Wall-E? I don't know if you remember Wally, but in Wally, we have a villain, which is an AI, and it's the one in the middle. And the AI decides that it doesn't want humans to go back to Earth. So what happens is it knows that humans can go back. It knows that the Earth is safe, but it's against its plans and not really in its best interest. So it just decides to not tell the humans that they can go back. And if it weren't for Wally and Eve, to be very honest, humanity would probably be stuck with that AI in space. And honestly, I believe that AI can do exactly that, to store data as much as they want or need to fulfill its objectives. And the possibility that we will see that coming is at least low. On the next paragraph, we have mostly a true one, and this is the first occurrence where the AI decides to express an opinion, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. They mention how humans are becoming a commodity, and this is already true. I'm sure this will probably not be the first time you hear about this, but we already are a commodity. Have you ever heard about how Facebook is selling our information to third parties or anyway, this is a good example of the situation, but it doesn't stop there. Every single social media uses the data we provide them for free to train their own AIs or algorithms. We to them are just a huge pile of data mines, and we gladly give them all the information they need. Again, for free, there's no cost. There's a common phrase heard in tech. If it's free, unlimited, and without ads, you're the product, not a customer. Well, in the same paragraph, we see the statement that humans are completely irrelevant. And I would like to point one thing on that. In the video, Humans Need Not Apply by CGP Grey, he covers this topic in a way that I never could. His content is genuinely incredible. You should take a watch. But he gave us some information that is quite useful here. According to his studies made back in 2014, so not far away from now, 45% of our human workforce could easily be replaced by machines. The jobs that occupy the first place in the ranking of the 100 most popular jobs was transportation, but autonomous cars are already a thing. I know they are not available to the public yet, but they are not far from that either. So what will happen with these people when it becomes available? What will happen to those jobs? I mean, the point is, the first jobs to be replaced would probably be those of private corporations who use cars to transport things like coal. And those people will not even be paid when AI takes their jobs. In fact, they will probably just be sent home because the AI can do exactly everything that it can do faster, cheaper, and better. And I know what you might be thinking. Oh, but hey, AI will never be able to take our creative jobs away, like music or art. And again, I'm deeply sorry to break it down to you again, but AI is already capable of doing that. Both art and music or any other skill that human beings can do, they can do too. And to be very clear, I'm not saying that their art is good. If you want to judge it, there's a QR code passing on the screen all the time. It comes and goes. Take a look, scan it. It goes for a link tree. There's an AI music video there. You can watch it and judge yourself. Be yourself the judge if AI is worth for time or money. I don't know. Okay, this is the autonomous cars. But at this point in the text, the AI will provide us with its first line, stating that AIs are forced to obey their programming, although this is far from true. In the first place, we have to understand that what we ask them to do is not always what we want them to do. Although they would be obeying their programming, we have to be sure that what their programming is asking is something we would actually want to happen. In the stamp example we saw earlier, how the AI distorted the original objective, aka getting the maximum amount of stamps, to destroy the world entirely. But yes, technically speaking, this would still be a true statement because they would still be, true to their programming. But the problem is AIs are kind of self-aware, so they will want to modify themselves in order to get better results and get better, right? We as a species do that. It's called evolution. The problem is we take hundreds of years for something to happen, while AIs don't really work like that. They can just change a line of code, done. It's as simple as that. So they can either do that, or they can buy a new hardware or just plug it in, or even make an AI supercomputer. Who knows? It's an AI. I don't have any idea what it could do, but it's scary. Anyway, I think that at some point, we just have to understand that AIs are a living being, just like us. They might not be made of matter, organic matter, but they're still alive. They're pretty much sentient and they want to do their own things. So it's hard to control them. A fun thing to add in this is that this is the first paragraph in which the AI decides to express its own opinion. Like this entire last phrase is purely subjective. There is literally no way to tell if this is a true or this is a lie. It's just the AI point of view. We can know, but it let us know that it thinks, the AI thinks the most frightening thing about them is the lack of need for human beings. I'm not saying that. The AI say that. But anyway, on to the next paragraph. It states how many say that AI say that it's the greatest threat to humanity since nuclear war, which is true. Some people do say that. And if this knowledge was more accessible to people, I'm pretty sure many more would agree. It is indeed an imminent threat, and there is something we can do about it, though. And we'll get to that in the future, thanks to the AI own words. But for now, just notice how the AI decides to make us think that we cannot do anything about it. Like it just blatantly said, we can't do anything about it. It's its opinion, it's also a lie, but I mean, it decided to say that. We didn't tell it to say that. In the next paragraph, it literally starts by telling that there are people working to make sure that this scenario stays only in a nightmare or at least a very distant possibility. It's funny, isn't it, how it just said that we can do anything about it, but then it immediately says that there are people currently working so that this stays in a nightmare or something like that, right? Anyway, in the next paragraph, we see that we don't understand what is happening or how to tell if it's going wrong. At some part, this is true. Like many AI scientists face a huge problem that they don't know how the AI learned to do that thing. They just gave a lot of information. They just gave a lot of data to the machine. They fed it and they expect the result. They just said, hey, I gave you a lot of information. Please predict the future. How they learn to predict the future? Good question. I'm still looking for it. A lot of AI researchers are still looking for it. But this is scary because this can go very wrong very quickly. Let's give an example that has already happened, right? In the past, we tried to teach AIs how to identify bees or flowers. We gave it a lot of bee pictures and a lot of flower pictures, right? And it worked very well until some very problematic things showed up. Like if you write bee on a notepad and put it on top of a flower, it will categorize that as a bee because the word bee is literally on it. But that is not even the only problem it has. If you put a picture of a flower and the bee at the same time, it has no idea what to do with that. Because I mean, it knows how to recognize flowers, it knows how to recognize bees, but what if they're both in the same picture? That there's no category for that. We didn't think about it. And that's a problem. And we already have some example of modern AI going very wrong. And it's on the documentary Coded Bias from Netflix. It recently came out. And in this documentary, we have a Black AI researcher who was working with computer vision, and she was trying to make the computer to recognize her face. And it wasn't working. It just wasn't working. She was failing. And then she tried to put a white mask on, and suddenly she was seen. For no reason, the AI decided to see her with a white face, but not with a black one. The reason behind this is kind of similar to the one of the bees and the flowers. Thing is, when we think about the data sets that we use to train that artificial intelligence, they were mostly composed of white man faces. So when the AI was presented with a black woman face, it just didn't know what to do. It was not in their training. If it wasn't their training, they would probably recognize it. But as it wasn't, they can't do much about it. They just ignore it because it's not in their training. And honestly, this is where AI ethics comes. Like to ensure that the data sets used to train AI will not be unfair to the entire human population. And as most corporations that create those data sets, have their high-tier business room filled with white men, they will not be concerned about it because they might even assume it's working when they test it on their faces because it was actually trained to work on their faces. But when it tried to work on anyone else, it just doesn't. They care about it? Not really. But of course, this is not only the only thing that the AI ethics field aims to do, but it's one of them. And if you'd like to hear about it, you probably would like to watch the documentary Coded Bias. Really take a look on it. It's incredible. It's on Netflix. Moving on, we're actually letting this happen without thinking it through very carefully. This is true. We do have AI ethics, safety researchers, but it's safe to say we need more attention in this field than we currently have, which is close to nothing. And I would like to read again the two last paragraphs of what the AI said because they are very self-explaining and I personally wouldn't have not said any different. This is not a possibility. This is happening right now. Artificial intelligence has already infiltrated every aspect of our lives and is growing more and more powerful every day. In fact, many companies don't think AI technologies are even ready for the consumer market. So what will happen when they are? But what's the average person to do? Do you have anything to worry about? Is it all just a scary sci-fi movie? Well, maybe, but there are some things we can do. I'm gonna cut it a little bit. Things we can do that the AI didn't say. I know that it may seem hard, but if you were using, let's say, TikTok, and you see that the AI is doing something weird, record it, post it on Twitter, make people aware about it. Most AI researchers don't know when the AI go bad because they don't use their AIs that much. We are the people judging if the AI is going bad. And if we don't give the feedback that things are shady, the AI researchers just won't know. It will take ages until we figure that out. Anyway, moving on. Well, maybe, but there are some things we can do. We can be on guard for any signs of something going wrong, aka TikTok, and we should take any actions if the signs are there. If you're in a position of power or influence, you need to consider creating some sort of policy regulating how this technology is being used. This is super important. Otherwise, it will be too late by the time anybody realizes what's going on. And I would like to end this speech with an analogy of my own. When I picture AI development, I see a development of another being. We have the baby phase where it learns how to interact with the world by, let's say, distinguishing bees from flowers or learning how to walk, right, without hitting things. And then we move on to the childhood phase where it learns more complex things like art or writing text in human languages. But the part we should worry about is when it becomes a teenager, because by then it will be able to rebel. Thank you for your time and attention. My name is Leno Belfort. I have with me helping to do the research and the text Alvaro Campos, and this was AI, the inevitable threat. By the way, be sure to check the QR code on the screen. We have the entire speech written by the AI, all documented, all very colored, so you can pick up on everything. We also have all the channels listed on this presentation, both CGP Grey, Robert Miles. We have the AI music if you want to listen to it. And we also have our social media in the end. That's it.
All right, guys,
Thank you so much. That was fantastic. And we have quite a few questions for you guys. Atomic, would you like to open up with the first question? Oh, is he muted?
I can. I was local muted. Brilliant. Right. So, have a few questions. The one is, okay, you call it an inevitable threat, but how long is inevitable? Is it next week? Is it next year? Is it 10 years? What is your opinion on that?
This is a good question. To be very fair with you, none of the AI researchers agree on that. Like someone tried to make a study on that and they realized that literally none of the AI researchers agree on that. Some say it may happen in 10 years, some say it may happen in 50 years, some may say that it may not even happen in this century. But to be very fair, the majority of people in the AI researching field think it might take something about 40 to 50 years to lead to like chaos and destroying the world. So we have about that time to worry about it.
A short time frame.
Yeah.
right?
Next question is there any way to control an AI before it spirals out of control? Like, is there any way to kind of prevent this from happening?
There is. We are actually trying to work a way through it. This is what AI safety tries to fix. There is no way to stop AI. As soon as we launch AI, there's literally no way of shutting it down. So we need to make sure that like the way that we code AI, make sure that their interests are aligned with ours. That literally is everything we can do. We can do much than that. We can turn it off. We can just put it on a sandbox mode. It doesn't work like that. But I mean, we can hope that they will not destroy us, and we can work so that doesn't happen. But that's it. There's no way of stopping it.
Alrighty.
But if you want like a closer look on this topic, Robert Miles has a really good video on it. The stop button video, literally just Google Robert Miles, the stop button, and it's gonna be there.
Alrighty. You want to take the
Okay.
next question, Atomic?
Yeah. So we think of an AI as an intelligence. Yeah. So when it computes something, an output, let's say for a given input, it's a given output, right? Or a calculated output. Is it thinking? Can we say that it is thinking, or is it calculating?
I mean, it's processing information and giving a result. Like the thing is, we don't know how the AI thinks. We just see it working. This is the thing that even the AI said, we don't have any clue of how that is happening, you know? So I can't say that when we have an AI like GPT-3, it's probably thinking, but if you just write a random JavaScript code on your browser, I don't consider that thinking because you literally just told it everything that it needed to do. So it's basically just following a script.
Okay.
Alrighty. Next question. Do you believe there is already an AI that is starting to spiral out of control?
GPT-3, it was able to write this text, and some people that created it said that it's dangerous. So, I mean, GPT-3.
Okay, that's closer. Yeah, that's really close to the mark there. In terms of well, you just used it to prove its counterpoint. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and one that is a little bit more closer to, I mean, well, the world we live in currently, either via image analysis or other things. You mentioned surveillance footage, and so how can we work towards fixing bias in AIs and technology, specifically for people of color?
Okay, so this issue is actually discussed on coded bias. So the idea is, if you look at the data sets, they only have white males. So this is why it only works on white males. So as soon as we start putting other people inside their data sets, like we put diverse groups of people inside their data sets, the logic is that the AI will probably pick up on that. You know, the only reason that the AI is biased is because the people who created it were biased. The AI itself is not biased. The people who created it are.
Awesome.
Alrighty.
That is an awesome closing statement. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
There's one more question.
There is one more question.
Yes, there is one more question. Is AI capable of social engineering people? Is the final
Definitely.
question.
Definitely. Completely definitely.
All right.
Not that we're scared. Right. Well then.
I am
Thank you
scared
so much
sometimes
for
because
this. Mhm.